Ashton-Under-Lyne is a market town in Tameside, Greater Manchester, England. The population was 45,198 at the 2011 census. Historically in Lancashire, it is on the north bank of the River Tame, in the foothills of the Pennines, 6.2 miles, 10.0 kilometers, east of Manchester. Evidence of Stone Age, Bronze Age, and Viking activity has been discovered in Ashton-Under-Lyne. The Ashton part of the town's name probably dates from the Anglo-Saxon period, and derives from Old English meaning settlement by ash trees. The origin of the Under-Lyne suffix is less clear. It possibly derives from the British lemo meaning elm or from Ashton's proximity to the Pennines. In the Middle Ages, Ashton-Under-Lyne was a parish and township, and Ashton Old Hall was held by the Asshetons, lords of the manor. Granted a royal charter in 1414, the manor spanned a rural area consisting of marshland, moorland, and a number of villages and hamlets. Until the introduction of the cotton trade in 1769, Ashton was considered bare, wet, and almost worthless. The factories system and textile manufactured during the Industrial Revolution triggered a process of unplanned urbanization in the area, and by the mid-19th century Ashton had emerged as an important mill town in a convergence of newly constructed canals and railways. Ashton-Under-Lyne's transport network allowed for an economic boom in cotton spinning, weaving, and coal mining, which led to the granting of municipal borough status in 1847. In the mid-20th century, imports of cheaper foreign goods led to the decline of Ashton's heavy industries, but the town has continued to thrive as a centre of commerce, and Ashton Market is one of the largest outdoor markets in the United Kingdom. The 140,000 square foot, 13,000 square meters, two-floored Ashton Arcades shopping centre opened in 1995 and an IKEA store in 2006. Lying within the historic county boundaries of Lancashire since the early 12th century, Ashton anciently constituted a single parish township, but was divided into 4 divisions, sometimes each styled townships Ashton Town, Audenshaw, Hartshead, and Knott Lanes. Ashton Town was granted a royal charter in 1414, giving it the right to hold a market. All 4 divisions lay within the hundred of Salford, an ancient division of the county of Lancashire. In 1827, police commissioners were established for Ashton Town, tasked with bringing about social and economic improvement. In 1847, this area was incorporated under the Municipal Corporations Act 1835 as a municipal borough with the name Ashton-Under-Lyne, giving it borough status. When the administrative county of Lancashire was created by the Local Government Act 1888, the borough fell under the newly created Lancashire County Council. The borough's boundaries changed during the late 19th century through small exchanges of land with the neighbouring districts of Oldham, Mossley, Dukinfield, and Stalybridge. In the early 20th century, the borough of Ashton-Under-Lyne grew. Hurst Urban District was added in 1927, parts of Hartshead and Alt Civil parishes in 1935, and parts of Limehurst Rural District in 1954. Since 1956, Ashton has been twinned with Chaumont, France. Under the Local Government Act 1972, the town's borough status was abolished, and Ashton has, since April 1, 1974, formed part of the Metropolitan Borough of Tameside, within the Metropolitan County of Greater Manchester. Ashton-Under-Lyne is divided into 4 wards: Ashton Hurst, Ashton St. Michael's, Ashton St. Peter's, and Ashton Waterloo. After the 2012 local elections, all 12 seats were held by Labour councillors. Since the Reform Act 1832, the town has been represented in Parliament as part of the Ashton-Under-Lyne parliamentary constituency. During its early years, the constituency was represented in the House of Commons by members of the Liberal Party until the late 19th century, when it was broadly held by the Conservative Party. It has been held by the Labour Party since 1935. Angela Rayner has been the constituency's Member of Parliament since 2015. At 53°2938 and 2°611 W, 53.4941 degrees, 2.1032 degree, and 160 miles, 257 kilometers, north-northwest of London, Ashton-Under-Lyne stands on the north bank of the River Tame, about 35 feet 11 meters above the river. Described in Samuel Lewis's A Topographical Dictionary of England, 1848, as situated on a gentle declivity, Ashton-Under-Lyne lies on undulating ground by the Pennines, reaching a maximum elevation of about 1,000 feet 305 meters above sea level. It is 6.2 miles, 10.0 kilometers, east of Manchester city centre, and is bound on all sides by other towns, Audenshaw, Droylsden, Dukinfield, Mossley, Oldham, and Stalybridge, with little or no green space between them. Ashton experiences a temperate maritime climate, like much of the British Isles. Generally, the bedrock of the west of the town consists of coal measures, which were exploited by the coal mining industry, while the east is mainly millstone grit. Overlying the bedrock are deposits of glacial sand and gravel, clay, and some alluvial deposits. Ashton Moss, a peat bog, lies to the west of the town and was originally much larger. The River Tame forms part of the southern boundary, dividing the town from Stalybridge and Dukinfield, and the River Medlock runs to the west. Ashton's built environment is similar to the urban structure of most towns in England, consisting of residential dwellings centered on a market square and high street in the town centre, which is the local center of commerce. There is a mixture of low-density urban areas, suburbs, semi-rural, and rural locations in Ashton-Under-Lyne, but overwhelmingly the land use in the town is residential. Industrial areas and terraced houses give way to suburbs and rural greenery as the land rises out of the town in the east. The older streets are narrow and irregular, but those built more recently are spacious, lined by substantial and handsome houses. Areas and suburbs of Ashton-Under-Lyne include Cockbrook, Crowhill, Guidebridge, Hartchad, Hazelhurst, Hurst, Lyndhurst, Rycroft, Taunton, and Waterloo. As of the 2001 UK census, Ashton-Under-Lyne had a population of 43,236. The 2001 population density was 12,374 per mi superscript 2, 4,777 per km superscript 2, with a 100 to 96.1 female to male ratio. Of those over 16 years old, 30.9% were single, never married, and 50% married. Ashton-Under-Lyne's 18,347 households included 33.2% single people, 33% married couples living together, 8.9% cohabiting couples, and 12.4% single parents with their children. These figures were similar to those of Tameside. However, both Tameside and Ashton have higher rates of single-parent households than England, 9.5%. Of those aged 16 to 74, 37% had no academic qualifications, similar to the figure of 35.2% for all of Tameside but significantly higher than the 28.9% figure for all of England, and 11.9% had an educational qualification such as first degree, higher degree, qualified teacher status, qualified medical doctor, qualified dentist, qualified nurse, midwife, health visitor, or similar, compared with 20% nationwide. In 1931, 10.2% of Ashton's population was middle class compared with 14% in England and Wales, and by 1971, this had increased steadily to 17.3% compared with 24% nationally. In the same time frame, there was a decline in the working class population. In 1931, 33.8% were working class compared with 36% in England and Wales. By 1971, this had decreased to 29.2% in Ashton and 26% nationwide. The rest of the population was made up of clerical workers and skilled manual workers. In 1700, the population of Ashton, the Tame Valley's main urban area, was an estimated 550. The town's 18th century growth was fueled by an influx of people from the countryside attracted by the prospect of work in its new industries, mirroring the rest of the region. In the early 19th century, Irish immigrants escaping from the Great Irish Famine were also drawn to the area by the new jobs created. The availability of jobs created by the growth of the textile industry in the town led to Ashton's population increasing by more than 400% between 1801 and 1861. From 6,500 to 34,886. The population dropped by 9% during the 1860s as a consequence of the cotton famine caused by the American Civil War. The table below details the population change since 1851, including the percentage change since the last census. St. Michael and All Angels Church is a Grade I listed building that dates back to at least 1262, although it was rebuilt in the 15th, 16th, and 19th centuries. In 1795 it was the only church in the town, and one of only two in Tameside. There was a great increase in the number of chapels and religious buildings in the area during the 19th century, and by the end of the century there were 44 Anglican churches and 138 chapels belonging to other denominations. The most common denominations amongst the chapels were Catholic, Congregationalist, and Methodist. The 19th century evangelist John Rowe attempted to turn Ashton-Under-Lyne into a New Jerusalem. He founded the Christian Israelite Church, and from 1822 to 1831 Ashton-Under-Lyne was the religion's headquarters. Rowe intended to build a wall around the town with 4 gateways, and although the wall was never constructed, the 4 gatehouses were. Popular opinion in the town turned against Rowe when he was accused of indecent behavior in 1831, but the charges were dismissed. The church spread to Australia, where it is still active. As of the 2001 UK census, 68.5% of Ashton residents reported themselves as being Christian, 6.1% Muslim, 5% Hindu, and 0.2% Buddhist. The census recorded that 11.4% had no religion, 0.2% had an alternative religion, and 8.7% did not state their religion. The proportion of Hindus in the town was much higher than the average for the borough and the whole of England, 1.4% and 1.1% respectively. The percentage of Muslims in Ashton-Under-Lyne was nearly double the national average of 3.1%, and was higher than the average of 2.5% for Tameside. As of October 2013, 6 mosques were located in the town, including one on Hillgate Street in Penny Meadow, Ashton Central Mosque, formerly known as Markazi Jamia Mosque, and one on Catherine Street in West End, Masjid Hamza Mosque. In the medieval period, farming was important in Ashton, particularly arable farming. By the 18th century, textiles had also become important to the town's economy. In the 1700s, 33.2% of those with jobs worked in textiles and 36% in agriculture. With the advent of the Industrial Revolution in the second half of the 18th century, the textile industry in the town boomed. It continued to expand until the cotton famine of 1861 to 1865, after which the industry remained steady until it collapsed after the overseas markets shut down in the 1920s. Coal has been mined in Ashton since at least the 17th century. In the late 18th and early 19th centuries, demand for coal increased, which led to an expansion of the town's coal industry. The produce of the collieries was transported by canal to Manchester. The industry began to decline during the late 19th century, and by 1904 only the Ashton Moss Colliery was still operational, the last colliery to be opened in the area. Ashton Town Centre, which is the largest in Tameside, developed in the Victorian period. Many of the original buildings have survived, and as a result, the town centre is protected by Tameside Council as a conservation area. As well as being populated by leading high street names, Ashton has an outdoor market which was established in the medieval period. It is made up of about 180 stalls, and is open 6 days a week. The farmers' market, with over 70 stalls, is the largest in the region, as is the weekday flea market. Ashton Market Hall underwent a £15 million restoration after it was damaged by fire. The Ashton Renewal Area project has attracted investment in the town centre, encouraging conservation and economic development. The 140,000 square foot, 13,000 square meters, 2-floored Ashton Arcades shopping centre opened in 1995. Permission has been granted for a £40 million extension, but work on this project has yet to begin. In 2006, after failing twice to gain permission, IKEA announced plans to build its first town centre store in Ashton-Under-Lyne. The store was expected to create 500 new jobs and to attract other businesses to the area. The store opened on October 19, 2006 and covers 296,000 square feet, 27,500 square meters. At the time of its creation, the store was the tallest in Britain. Amongst the facilities provided by Ashton Leisure Park are a 14-screen cinema, a bowling alley, and several restaurants. The St. Petersfield area of Ashton underwent a £42 million redevelopment and provided 2,000 jobs. The aim of the investment was to create a business district in the town and bring life to a neglected area of Ashton. The development provided 280,000 square feet, 26,000 square meters, of office space and 400,000 square feet, 37,000 square meters, of retail and leisure space. Pennines NHS Trust relocated its headquarters to the St. Petersfield area in 2006. Until then a popular night spot, in 2002 several nightclubs were brought to the brink of closure after a downturn in trade caused by 4 murders in 3 months. According to the 2001 UK census, residents aged 16 to 74 were employed in the following industries: 22.7% manufacturing, 18.6% retail and wholesale, 11.3% health and social work, 9.8% property and business services, 6.7% construction, 6.5% transport and communications, 5.8% education, 5.6% public administration, 4.3% hotels and Restaurants, 3.8% finance, 0.4% agriculture, 0.7% energy and water supply, and 3.9% other. Compared with national figures, the town had a relatively low percentage working in agriculture, public administration, and property, and high rates of employment in construction, at more than triple the national rate, 6.8%. The census recorded the economic activity of residents aged 16 to 74, 2% were students with jobs, 3.8% students without jobs, 6.4% looking after home or family, 9.5% permanently sick or disabled, and 3.9% economically inactive for other reasons. Ashton's 4.1% unemployment rate was above the national rate of 3.3%. The town's most prominent football teams are Ashton United FC and Curzon Ashton FC. Ashton United was the first team in the Manchester Football Association to win an FA Cup tie, when they beat Turton 3-0 in 1883. In 1885, they were the first winners of the Manchester Senior Cup, beating Newton Heath, who later became Manchester United, in the final. They currently compete in the Northern Premier League Premier Division, the 7th tier of English football, playing at Hurst Cross. Curzon Ashton has competed since 2015 in the National League North, the highest level in the club's history. They play at the Tameside Stadium. Other sporting venues include the Richmond Park Athletics Stadium, which has an all-weather running track with facilities for field events and is home to the East Cheshire Harriers, Tameside Athletics Club, and Ashton Cricket Club, which has won the Central Lancashire Cricket League's 1st and 2nd Division twice each, and the Wood Cup 4 times. After the Ashton Canal closed in the 1960s, it was decided to turn the Portland Basin Warehouse into a museum. In 1985, the first part of the Heritage Centre and Museum opened on the first floor of the warehouse. The restoration of the building was complete in 1999. The museum details Tameside's social, industrial, and political history. The basin next to the warehouse is the point at which the Ashton Canal, the Huddersfield Narrow Canal and the Peak Forest Canal meet. It has been used several times as a filming location for Coronation Street, including a scene where the character Richard Hillman drove into the canal. The earliest parts of Ashton Town Hall, which was the first purpose-built town hall in what is now Tameside, date to 1840 when it was opened. It has classical features such as the Corinthian columns on the entrance facade. Enlarged in 1878, the hall provides areas for administrative purposes and public functions. The old street drill hall was completed in 1887. There are 5 parks in the town, 3 of which have Green Flag awards. The first park opened in Ashton-Under-Lyne was Stamford Park on the border with Stalybridge. The park opened in 1873, after a 17-year campaign by local cotton workers. The land was bought from a local mill owner for £15,000, £1.4 million as of 2019, and further land was donated by George Grey, 7th Earl of Stamford. A crowd of between 60,000 and 80,000 turned out to see the Earl of Stamford formally open the new facility on July 12, 1873. It now includes a boating lake and a memorial to Joseph Rayner Stevens, commissioned by local factory workers to commemorate his work promoting fair wages and improved working conditions. A conservatory was opened in 1907, and coronation gates were installed at both the Ashton-Under-Lyne and Stalybridge entrances in 1953. Hartshed Pike is a stone tower on top of Hartshed Hill overlooking Ashton and Oldham. The existing building was constructed in 1863, but there has been a building on the site since at least the mid-18th century, although the original purpose is obscure. The pike might have been the site of a beacon in the late 16th century. It has a visitor centre, and from the top of the hill it is possible to see the Jodrell Bank Observatory in Cheshire, the Welsh Hills, and the Hole Moss Transmitter in West Yorkshire. The Wychwood Public House, in the St. Petersfield area of the town, has been a music venue since the 1960s, hosting acts such as Muse, The Coral, and Lost Prophets. In 2004, the Wychwood came under threat when the area was being redeveloped, but was saved from demolition after a campaign by locals and led by Tom Hemsley, drawing support from musicians such as Bert Jansch, The Fall, and the Chameleons. The main Ashton-Under-Lyne War Memorial, in Memorial Gardens, consists of a central cenotaph on a plinth, surmounted by a sculpted wounded soldier and the figure of Peace who was taking the sword of honor from his hand. It commemorates the 1,512 people from the town who died in the First World War and the 301 who died in the Second World War. The cenotaph is flanked on both sides by bronze lions. The plinth is decorated with military equipment representing the services, as well as bronze tablets listing the Roll of Honor from World War I commissioned by the Ashton War Memorial Committee. The statue was sculpted between 1919 and 1922 by John Ashton Floyd, and unveiled on September 16, 1922 by General Surrey and Hamilton. The tablet on the front of the memorial reads, "Erected in honor of the men of Ashton-Under-Lyne and district who fought for king and empire in the Great War, especially those who sacrificed their lives, and whose names are recorded hereon 1914 to 1919. In 1732, an Act of Parliament was passed which permitted the construction of a turnpike from Manchester, then in Lancashire, to Salters Brook in Cheshire. The road passed through Ashton-Under-Lyne as well as Audenshaw, Mottram in Longdendale, and Stalybridge. A turnpike trust was responsible for collecting tolls from traffic. The proceeds were used for road maintenance. The trust for Manchester to Salters Brook was one of over 400 established between 1706 and 1750, a period in which turnpikes became popular. It was the first turnpike to be opened in Tameside, and driven by economic growth, more turnpikes were opened in the area in the late 18th and early 19th centuries. Acts of Parliaments were passed in 1765, 1793, and 1799 permitting the construction of turnpikes from Ashton-Under-Lyne to Dr. Lanehead and Saddleworth, Standedge and Saddleworth, and Oldham respectively. Towards the end of the 19th century, many turnpike trusts were wound up as they were superseded by local government. The last in Tameside to close was the Ashton-Under-Lyne to Salters Brook Road in 1884. Ashton is now served by the M60 motorway, which cuts through the west end of Ashton, Junction 23. The town of Ashton-Under-Lyne became the focus of 3 canals which were constructed in Tameside in the 1790s because it was an important centre of coal mining in the Lancashire coalfield. The 1790s has been characterised as a period of mania for canal building in England. The first of the 3 to be built was the Ashton Canal, which was constructed between 1792 and 1797. Connecting Manchester to Ashton-Under-Lyne, with a branch to Oldham, it cost about £170,000, £16 million as of 2019. The Peat Forest Canal was constructed from 1794 to 1805, and was originally planned as a branch of the Ashton Canal. It connected the Portland Basin with the Peak District and cost £177,000, £14 million as of 2019. The Huddersfield Narrow Canal was built between 1794 and 1811 to enable cross-Pennine trade between Manchester and Kingston upon Hull. The cost of construction was £400,000. The advent of the railways in the 19th century signaled the decline of the canal system. The new railways were quicker and more economical than the canals, and the waterways declined. The Huddersfield Canal was bought by the Huddersfield and Manchester Railway in 1844. Along with the Ashton and Peak Forest Canals, the Huddersfield Canal was later bought by the Sheffield, Ashton-Under-Lyne, and Manchester Railway Company. The canals remained in use throughout the 19th century on a smaller scale than in their heyday, but by the mid-20th century all commercial traffic had ceased. Following an extended period of closure and dereliction, during which parts of the Huddersfield Canal were filled in or built over, a complete restoration was undertaken and the entire canal reopened in 2001. The 3 canals are now used for leisure craft and are still maintained and in good condition. The Sheffield, Ashton-Under-Lyne, and Manchester Railway Company was founded in 1836 with the purpose of building a line linking Manchester and Sheffield. The line was opened in stages and by 1845 was complete. It included a branch to the nearby town of Stalybridge. The former Ashton Park Parade station was included on this branch. The town historically had 3 stations: Ashton, Charlestown, Park Parade, closed 1956, and Oldham Road, closed 1959, on the Oldham, Ashton, and Guide Bridge Railway. Additionally, Guide Bridge, a few miles away, was known as Ashton and Hooley Hill and then Ashton in its earliest years. The present station was opened by the Ashton, Stalybridge, and Liverpool Junction Railway, AS&LJR, on April 13, 1846. The AS&LJR was absorbed by the Manchester and Leeds Railway in 1847, which was then renamed the Lancashire and Yorkshire Railway, LYR. Known originally as Ashton, the LYR renamed it Ashton, Charlestown, in 1874. The LYR amalgamated with the London and North Western Railway at the start of 1922, and these in turn amalgamated with several other companies on January 1, 1923, to form the London, Midland, and Scottish Railway during the 1923 grouping. It then passed to the London Midland region of British Railways on nationalisation in 1948. The station was renamed Ashton-Under-Lyne on May 6, 1968. It has regular services on the Huddersfield line between Manchester, Victoria, and Huddersfield. In 1881, a tramway with horse-drawn tramcars was opened between Stalybridge and Audenshaw, through Ashton-Under-Lyne. The first tramway of its kind in Tameside, it was later extended to Manchester. The Oldham, Ashton, and Hyde Electric Tramway Company, founded in 1899, operated 13 kilometers 8 miles of tram lines with electric tramcars. It was the first line around Manchester to use electricity. A line from Stalybridge to Ashton-Under-Lyne was opened in 1903 and operated by the Stalybridge, Hyde, Mossley and Dukinfield Tramways and Electricity Board. The first bus service from Ashton-Under-Lyne ran in 1923, and the 1920s saw a period of decline for the tramways as they suffered from the competition with buses. The last electric tram service in the town ran in 1938. After a 75-year absence, trams returned to Ashton in October 2013, when the Manchester Metrolink tram system opened the East Manchester line to the town. Ashton-Under-Lyne tram stop in the town centre stands alongside the bus station and is the terminus for the East Manchester line, which runs to Manchester Piccadilly Station and Manchester City Centre. Away from the town centre towards Manchester, there are also the Ashton West and Ashton Moss tram stops. There are 10 nursery schools, 16 primary schools, and 2 secondary schools in Ashton-Under-Lyne as of 2019. In 2006, the council began a scheme to develop education in the borough by opening 6 new secondary schools. Among the changes proposed as part of the £160 million scheme was the closure of Hartshead Sports College and Stamford Community High School, to be replaced by a 1,350 pupil academy with 306 form members. In 2007, Hartshead Sports College was placed on special measures after it failed to achieve its targets for General Certificate of Secondary Education results and was criticized by Ofsted for its teaching standard. The new academy opened in September 2008, a year ahead of schedule. It was named New Charter Academy, now Great Academy Ashton, after its sponsor, the New Charter Housing Trust. The other secondary school in the town is St. Damian's RC Science College, which was founded in 1963, and provides education for 800 pupils aged 11 to 16. As part of the Building Schools for the Future project, a replacement school building was built by Carillion and opened in May 2011. Dale Grove School has 60 pupils and offers education for pupils aged 5 to 16 with special needs. Ashton Sixth Form College is a centre for further education with 1,650 pupils aged 16 to 18. Tameside College also provides opportunities for further education and operates in Ashton-Under-Lyne, Droylsden, and Hyde. Founded in 1954 and expanded in 1957 and 1964, it was originally called Ashton College. In the early 19th century, Ashton-Under-Lyne's growth made it necessary to find a new water supply. Before the introduction of piped water, the town's inhabitants drew water from wells and the nearby River Tame. Industrial processes had, however, polluted the river, and the wells could not sustain a rapidly expanding population. From 1825, a private company was responsible for piping water from reservoirs, but there were still many homes without proper drainage or water supply. Waste management is now coordinated by the local authority via the Greater Manchester Waste Disposal Authority. The first power station in Tameside was built in 1899, providing power for the area. Ashton's distribution network operator for electricity is United Utilities. There are no power stations in the town. United Utilities also manages the drinking and wastewater. Home office policing in Ashton-Under-Lyne is provided by the Greater Manchester Police. The Forces Tameside Division have their divisional headquarters for policing Tameside in the town. Public transport in the area is coordinated by Transport for Greater Manchester. Statutory emergency fire and rescue services provided by the Greater Manchester Fire and Rescue Service, which has one station on Slate Lane. The Tameside General Hospital is a large NHS hospital on the outskirts of the town, administered by Tameside Hospital NHS Foundation Trust. The Northwest Ambulance Service provides emergency patient transport. List of mills in Tameside. List of people from Tameside. Listed buildings in Ashton-Under-Lyne. Ashton-Under-Lyne munitions explosion.